I think it's exactly 6:30. We need to wait that because that's what's published. We're going to make sure that everybody is aware that the meeting starts exactly at 6:30. So, we will begin. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council of Universal City, Texas. It is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. It is now 6:30 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order and call for quorum check, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Here.
Councilmember Buck.
Here.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Najarian.
Here.
Councilmember Shelby.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
Quorum is present. We shall proceed. The invocation this evening will be with my Councilmember Najarian, and I'll lead us in the pledges afterwards, so would everyone please stand.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting, helping us to engage in meaningful discussion, allowing us to grow closer as a community, and nurture the bonds of this city and its citizens. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that affect the lives of people in our city. Help us to look to the past with gratitude and to the future with hope, to remember this day those who have gone before us here, who labored not for themselves alone, but with a vision of building for the future. Inspire in us also a like vision, that we too may labor for things beyond ourselves, that our lives may be dedicated to high purposes and grand horizons. Make us unafraid of hopes and dreams. Release us from cynicism and despair. Teach us to be realistic about our limitations, but never to lose hope in our potential for transcending it. Lord, we ask that you put a cover of blessings on the city of Vivaldi and have mercy on the victims of families who are grieving the loss of their loved one. Be with the parents, especially who sit on the empty bed of the child who did not return home. Their anguish is beyond comprehension. Allow our prayers to be their strength and reveal yourself in the midst of their deepest pain. Father, for every person that has suffered the loss of their loved one, touch them today as only you can. As it is written in Hebrews 4:16, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Lord, we also ask that you bless us, these proceedings, and this city, keeping forever safe the phrase, in God we trust, and that you watch over and protect all of our first responders, active military, and veterans of this great nation. We ask all of these things in your glorious name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. Special recognition. We're going to give it a couple of minutes, and I go what Councilmember Najarian said. But for the grace of God, the elementary schools in Universal City, that could happen to us, just like it happened in Vivaldi. Not a great difference in population size. There's 16,000. We're at about 21,000 right now. And so you can imagine how we would grieve like they have been grieving for the past 2 weeks. Something totally unexpected. It happened. And the only other one thing I'd say before we start celebrating is this is also the 78th anniversary of D-Day. To those that were alive and well in those days, at that very, very difficult time in the war, it's just amazing. If you've ever watched the movie Saving Private Ryan, you can tell what exactly those first 15 minutes of that war were like, because Steven Spielberg interviewed many survivors of that Normandy invasion. So I would just say, can we pause for about 10 seconds to recognize those brave men and women who lost their lives on that day. Now we have some good stuff, some really good positive stuff. It's bittersweet because we're saying goodbye to one of our special firefighters who's been with us for, gosh, over 30 years with Universal City. But it's our chance to say thank you for the dedicated service you've given. You can see some of his fellow firefighters here this evening. So I would like to just, well, I'll come on down for a second. I want to give you a special presentation. So, Bobby, Kat, and Mark, let's start. Join me down here. I want everybody to see you. You've got your family here. They know you really well, but other people don't, maybe don't know you quite as well. Okay? Okay. Just want to say this. Let me give you a couple of gee whizzes about them. They're all really good. 36 years of firefighting, service Universal City. 6 years as a volunteer firefighter. 30 years as a city staff member. He was promoted to captain in 2006, so you do the math. You can see how long he's been a captain in our department. Bobby's dad also served Universal City as a volunteer firefighter. Pretty awesome. I don't know how many of you knew that. His sister Wendy served the UC community for about 30 years as dispatcher in the police department. I think we know who that is. A pretty special young lady there. So this is our. There was a little ceremony with staff later this afternoon before a council meeting. But I do want to be able to present him as something officially from council to recognize his wonderful dedicated service to our community. So let me get this for you. Well, these things get heavier every year. Okay, here's what it says. Presented to Robert Martin Jr., Fire Captain, May 1992 to May 2022. With sincere appreciation for your loyalty and dedicated service to the community and city of Universal City. All right, there's not much more we can say, but we really appreciate your dedicated service to us all these fantastic years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know you got another great thing going for you next year.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir, I do.
Well, congratulations. Speaking too much,
yes,
would you like to say something to the gang out here tonight?
Just thank you all for showing up, and I had a great run at it, and it's time for all these young faces you see over there to get their run at it. Keep our department just like it is now. Great. Don't ever let it go anywhere from there. It's up to y'all now. Got it?
Very good. Thanks, Mark. I think you have a run. Your expenses right there.
Yes. Yeah. All right. You ready to go outside swim?
Oh, your box is right there. Right there.
Did I really? That's fantastic. Oh, send that to Vaughan.
There's one other thing in this area here of awards and recognitions and proclamations that I would like to bring up this evening. We're going to start something that we actually began with the Gateway some months ago, in fact a couple of years ago, where we recognized local businesses in the community. Most of them, obviously new businesses coming in. And it dawned on me that maybe this is an opportunity for us to recognize businesses in Universal City for on special occasions, actions that they may have taken, or participation that they may have been with our community. So it's kind of interesting because today is the 100th anniversary of State Farm Insurance. And we happen to have, I don't know if you realize this, we actually have 3 agents in Universal City. We have Louis Corral, John Delgado, and Dan Hernandez. They would have been here this evening, except they're all at their 100th anniversary convention in Las Vegas. So I guess that's the reason for them not to be here this evening. But I thought it would be an opportunity for us to recognize them on their 100th anniversary. And June is a very special month for them. So, like a good neighbor, right? Okay, they are there, and it's more than just a slogan. They are good friends, and those of you that are State Farm insurance people, I think you understand that as well. But we're pleased and blessed to have 3 of those agencies in the community. So we're going to start recognizing businesses for some of the special things that they do in our community. And State Farm has been very active with us over many, many years. And so this is the first opportunity to do this, and you'll see in future meetings, we're going to be recognizing more and more of our local businesses. It's our chance to say thank you for what you do and to recognize it for things that might be happening that are very special. So, I think that moves us on then to our next item on the agenda, which is to our consent agenda, which is tab A. All matters listed, as you can read, are considered to be routine by council, and they will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. These items, if discussion is desired, that on what particular item could be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. So there's actually two items this evening. One is A, consider the minutes of the Tuesday, May 17, 2022 regular meeting. And B is the second reading of considering Resolution 940. It's a resolution authorizing a project which will facilitate the promotion and development of new or expanding commercial development, and which was approved by the Board of Directors of the Kansas City Economic Development Corporation on 12 May 2022, and providing an effective date. Again, that's our second reading. So those are the two items on the consent agenda. Has anybody?
Move to approve.
Motion made by
Second.
Councilmember Najarian, second by Councilmember Shelby. Any discussion by anyone? All right, call the vote then, please, Chris.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
That motion passes. Let's move on. Very well. Next item is the citizens to be heard. Again, you can see that time is devoted for citizens to address council on items of interest. For us, we can't take action on it, but we are certainly interested in having input from our citizens, and we have been very blessed in recent months, especially by having many citizens come and express their feelings about what they think is very important and some items that they think is very important. So we've had 4 individuals that signed up this evening. So I'll call you in order that you signed up. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes if you can. First person, Dale Nash, and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, certainly. Dale Nash, my address is 8554 Athenian Drive, University City, Texas 78148. So right down the street. Thank you guys for serving, the city that I've stayed in now for 14 years. I've lived here quite some time. And the only thing I really wanted to address is the brush pickup and the pickup for the leaves. I've got a ton of trees in my yard. And for 14 years, I picked these leaves up, and I can get as many as 50 bags in one season, and put them out to the curb, and they would be picked up. With these new policies that go into effect with the trash, I got my first violation in 14 years that I had bags in the street because I haven't had to pick up leaves while I was out of town, and so I understood those were staying out there for a while. So I came down here, and I got a little more scoop on, got this, and found out that we're charging now per bag, I believe, $2.75 for pink slips, if I'm not mistaken, to pick up these leaves now, and we can get them picked up. So that adds about $200 a year to my trash disposal, personally on my own home. So I'm assuming that everyone else with trees is going to end up with that same kind of problem. So I just kind of want to address that being said, and if we could maybe find an amicable solution, and maybe not hitting that blindside $200 per year service fee, I guess. It kind of just got blindsided as far as I'm concerned, being that's the way I've been rolling for 14 years. So that's was my suggestion. We could get a little reprieve, at least for the year of 2022 at this time. We're going to have it happen in the fall. We're going to have it happen in the spring. We do have a brush pickup for 5 days, March 28th through the 2nd of April. Again, on the 25th of April through the 30th. So that's 2 windows of 5 days. Again, 24th of October through 29th of October, 5 days. And November 28th through December 3rd, 5 days. If I don't pick up these leaves in those 5 days, I guess those leaves won't be picked up unless I come and pay for it. I just wanted to address the change and see if maybe it could be considered for all people in the city that do have the trees and have that problem. And that's all I have, really.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very much. Okay, next individual is Ms. Ashton Goolsby.
Ashton Coleman, 12807 El Dorado. Huge thank you again to Buck, Vaughan, and Kim Turner for Sunday's meet and greet. It's a wonderful forum for citizens to feel heard and gather information. I think it'd be awesome to see the council members rotate on these Sundays if they're interested. I never want to come here with a complaint without a solution. I've been waiting months for the North Lake proposals to come in. I've been so excited to see what those options are and what it means for the city. I'm disappointed that the city, to my knowledge, has done zero problem solving to make any of the proposals to some degree open to the public. I asked to see them maybe without the numbers so it doesn't hurt negotiating power. Maybe we could ask the developers if they felt comfortable writing up a little blurb of their pitch that the city can read to the citizens, leave it up to the developers. If they refuse, at least it shows us that you tried. I'm just trying to come up with a solution to make the citizens a little bit more involved. I know the saying here is, you voted for us, so you have to trust us. I voted for the council members sitting up there to have my interest at heart. I trust some of you to stand up for me. However, if you can't see how this situation is a little different than the other situations, that's my issue. Normally, an agenda goes out and I can give you my input before you vote. This closed door session, I don't get to know any detail on what you're voting on before you vote. Can you understand why I'm upset? We get zero info and input. You get to vote on something where you have no idea how the citizens feel about it. I honestly and wholeheartedly believe there's a better way to do Thursday. There has to be a way to let the public have say before voting. Now, if it's like Kim Turner explained on Sunday, just a broad proposal, no big business is attached, then I trust you guys to vote and make that choice without public input. However, if you go into executive session and these proposals have big businesses attached to them, I'm asking you guys to hold off on the vote. Listen to the proposals, close doors, but wait on that vote. At the end of proposals, see if you guys can problem solve and you can come up with something that you can share with us before you vote. Ask the developers themselves, see if the city can help figure out a way to get the public involved. I'm just begging you to reconsider. You guys get the final vote, so of course it's your say. Just let your citizens give their input. We want to be involved and have some input, whether you take it or not. Thanks.
Okay, next individual signed for this evening, Ms. Kim Michaelhart.
Good evening, Kim Michaelhart, 736 Cardinal Drive. Excuse me. The Texas Supreme Court has held that citizens are entitled not only to know what government is deciding, but to observe how and why every decision is reached. First exception, consultations with attorney. The OAG handbook states a governmental body may consult with its attorney in executive session about the legal issues raised in connection with awarding a contract, but it may not discuss the merits of a proposed contract, financial considerations, or other non-legal matters in an executive session held pursuant to this exception. Second exception, deliberations about real property permits an executive session only where public discussion of the subject would have a detrimental effect on the governmental body's negotiating position with respect to a third party. In the words of a federal court judge, quote, the real estate exception was created to keep a governmental entity from having to telegraph its punch in an open meeting to the detriment of the taxpayers, not to use it as a blank check to cut a deal in private, devoid of public input or debate. The attorney consultation and real estate exceptions are not magic talismans that can be dragged out every time a body subject to the TOMA wants to have a secret meeting. End quote. A Texas appellate court declared the city of Laredo's vote to purchase a parcel of land property invalid and void due to Open Meetings Act violations. Quote, the record shows that the city convenes in closed session pursuant to the real estate exception each time it intends to discuss the purchase of real property, regardless of whether the city's deliberation process would impede the city's negotiations with a third party. Such procedure is contrary to the spirit of TOMA, whose provisions are to be liberally construed in favor of open government. End quote. Third exception, deliberations regarding EDC negotiations. The OAG handbook doesn't discuss this. However, given the information cited above, the direction the courts would take on this exception is pretty clear. Gentlemen, the age of this body retreating into executive session each and every time the city is conducting meaningful real estate discussions needs to come to an end. When you're hiding behind closed doors this Thursday, I want you to ask yourselves at each stage of the meeting, what is so secretive about this that we cannot do it in front of the people of our city? What part of this is attorney-client privilege? What part of this is truly going to compromise the city's negotiating position if it is done publicly? The time has come to find a way to bifurcate these presentations so that residents can receive an overview, and only that part of the presentation that truly stands to compromise the city's negotiating position, if any, is held prior. Just because an exception may apply does not mean it must be exercised. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments, ma'am. All right, last individual signed up this evening is Miss Alexis Adams.
Good evening. I'm here for something a little bit different, maybe a little new. Alexis Adams, 106 Brightwood Cove, in here in Universal City. And I am here, again, not to speak for only myself, but for everyone in this community to have the same opportunity to be heard. As probably all of you know, maybe some of you don't, June is considered Pride Month, is recognized by the United States in commemoration of the Stonewall Uprising in 1969, which sparked a civil rights movement in support of the LGBTQ community. This community is here in Universal City. We are your friends, we are your family, we are your neighbors, business owners, community volunteers. To my knowledge, Universal City has never publicly recognized Pride Month, although some surrounding communities have chosen to do so. And I'm here to ask for that change. I'd like to ask City Council Mayor to make a statement of support and for the LGBT community here in Universal City, your current residents, future residents, and your voters. I also would like to ask that all the anti-discrimination ordinances that exist currently in Universal City have a slight change to add not just anti-discrimination for race, age, or national origin, but to also include sexual orientation and gender identity, which again is included in, not in the state of Texas, but in many communities within the state. And I think that would be useful to make sure certain decisions are not made in discrimination of everybody in the city, and everybody is included. Again, we are here in the city, and we contribute to the cultural, civic, and economic success. I understand that this maybe met with some discussion here in the city and the citizens, maybe met with some fear. And I'm here to start and welcome an open, honest, and frank dialogue to dispel any fear, any hate, and hope that this city and our community can recognize humanity of all of us and stand with everybody to strengthen our alliances, build acceptance, and advance equality and progress towards a better future for everybody.
Thank you, Alexis. Appreciate your comments. Thank you all, four of you, for coming to council this evening. Would anyone else like to address council that did not have a chance to sign up on the sheet here this evening? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Let's proceed on then with the business for this evening. First item is tab number B. Consider the real property donation agreement for a 0.2749A tract located at the intersection of Universal City Boulevard and Robin Drive. Stern, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope everybody, based on the description I gave, understood the property that was in question along with the schematic. So this property is actually owned by the owners of the Ironwood Apartments, and they weren't really even aware that they owned it or that their maintenance man was mowing it all of these years. They had considered utilizing it, however, it is zoned for apartments. They were hoping to put a maintenance shack on there, a little far off, yes, sir. And a little small for that. They were hoping to put a maintenance shop there, but we can't have vehicles crossing the street, and it would require rezoning. And so it's very problematic for them at this point. To further add to that, it is completely enclosed. It's a triangular piece of property, and it's completely enclosed on three sides by city right-of-way, being Robin Drive, Universal City Boulevard, and then the alley that we have there. So in discussion with them, they have agreed to donate the property to the city, and I have outlined in my title the things that the city will be taking care of in order to accept that donation. So with that, we are presenting this to the city to accept the donated property without any encumbrances.
Okay, let me entertain a motion and we'll go into.
Move for approval.
Second. Shelby, second by Councilmember Buck. Any discussion now? Okay, pretty straightforward.
I do have a question.
Yes, okay.
Are there any utilities present on there, water or electricity, if we were to landscape it? Because I know one of the things that I've heard about is that that all the plants get planted and then they rather pretty quickly die. Is there water service out there that we could landscape it and keep it alive?
Yes, Randy is saying yes, and we do water all over landscape islands, just so you understand that.
Anyone else? All right, I have a motion and a second, so I'm calling for the vote, please. Chris?
Councilmember Shelby,
Aye.
Councilmember Buck,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
I take it everyone knows where this location is, the Armored Apartments? Jimmy, you want to give them a little description exactly where they are, so that they're.
Universal City Boulevard, crossover Pat Booker Road, veer to the left toward Kitty Hawk, it's on the right-hand side.
Okay, it's just right down the street from here. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, so the next item is again related to that. It's tab number C. Consider an agreement granting the City of Universal City a 0.046A easement on a certain section of the Ironwood Apartments located at 1950 Universal City Boulevard.
So rather odd, this is actually an issue that we're going to be talking about during the budget cycle and when we get to our utility department. And so as a precursor, well site 5 is a very deep well, the one located on Kitty Hawk Road. And it is problematic at this point. It is one of our smallest wells in terms of pumping capacity, but it also has a lot of debris and everything that's in the bore. And it's to the point where we need to move that well and rebore. So in order to shift the well site over, still within the city property, we're required to have a buffer around it so that we can do the construction and maintenance and provide security for the well. So with that, we again worked with the folks at the Ironwood Apartments, and they have been very, very generous with us for them to provide a 0.046 acre easement that the well will not be on that site. The well will still be on the city property, but that little easement on their property will be the buffer that we need. And so they are willing to grant us a perpetual easement for that buffer. We will have to fence it in because that's the TCP requirement with all well sites. And then as well, we'll do some landscaping in there to kind of make it look like it blends in with the apartment complex a little bit. So we have that easement before us this evening, and we're asking the city to accept the easement and to allow me to sign the documents to have the easement transferred to the city.
Move for approval.
Okay.
Second.
Shelby, second by Councilmember Najarian. Any discussion by anyone? Yes, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably a question for Randy. So we're just going to move the wellhead. Will the fluorine tank and all that stay in its place, or is we going to have to move some of that?
Yes, the current location of the well will be plugged. We're working on plugging the well right now because the casing has failed on us. So that's going to have to be cemented in. The well will be moved further back. We're hiring a geologist to determine the exact location for us drilling it, but everything else will stay in place.
And as far as drilling the well, and I know this is not really part of this, but just for information, what will the residents around that area, what should they expect?
They're going to see large equipment through there. They're going to have, it's going to take several months to drill this well. So there will be no noise associated with drilling the well, which we'll work with the apartments on because they'll be the ones really impacted. Because once they start drilling and they start completing the casing, they can't stop. So it may go 24 hours when they start laying the casing in, because once they start doing, if they stop, it could collapse on them. So they have to keep putting the casing in continuously.
And we'll notify the residents of that. Anybody that would be affected by that.
Yeah. And that project will be coming before you here shortly.
Okay. So sorry to jump the gun on
When we
you.
get to the budget cycle, we'll be talking about cost and timeline and procedures and things of that nature.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. No?
How many gallons of water will this add to
or the path?
Oh, he's asking to change the capacity.
Yeah, currently, it's a 1,200 GPM well. We're looking at hopefully bumping up to at least 14 GPM. But we're limited on the, because we're trying to utilize the existing motors that we have there.
Okay. Any other discussion by anyone?
And just a fun fact.
Yes, Kim.
People ask this when we talk about how far do we have to drill down? About 500 feet. So if you can understand why it takes so long to get all the drilling and the casing done, we're going a long distance.
Okay. Any other comments by anybody? All right, Kristen, call for the vote, please, ma'am.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Well, let's move on then. Motion passes unanimously. Let's move on to tab number D. Consider the annual bad debt write-off period, October 2020 to September 2021. Turner, can you explain,
Yes, sir. As
please?
you know, we typically write off utility bad debt in October when we start preparing for the audit. However, when we went through the COVID period, we knew that we had a lot of people who were unable to make water payments, so we went through a very long grace period with them. In June, we started notifying people that they needed to make the payments and or come in and set up their payment plans. And thankfully, with the funding that we also provided to GRASP, Greater Randolph Area Service Providers, and RACAP, we were able to assist a lot of people in getting them caught up on their utility bills, respective of water and sewer. So we've gone through that period. We think that we've gone through working with everybody that we can. And so at this time, although it be a little bit late, we are ready to write off that bad debt in the amount of $12,805.24.
$12,000.
Yeah, our average debt write-off in the utility is about $15,000 a year. So I think giving them the extra grace period and the assistance to GRASP and RACAP help keep it to where it normally is.
Move for approval.
Okay, motion been by Councilmember
Second.
Shelby, second by Councilmember Goolsby. Any further discussion? Anybody? Yes, please.
I'm just curious how, you mentioned in the notes that somebody came back in and they had a balance before that you would make them get caught up before they could reestablish service. How do you track that if you write off the balance? How do you know that Sally Sue owed us $200 a year ago? And how do you find that?
So the software system that we have, accounts never go away. So if somebody lived at an address, let's say wherever I live, and lived at an address, when they move out, their account is still there and all the accounts are tagged that have a balance on it if we've not been able to collect it. So if the next person comes in and they set up an account for that address, we actually start a new account. And then in the system, when people are setting up accounts, we can run their names under our accounting system, and it tells us if they've been in the city before and they have debt that has not been collected.
But even though it's been removed, it will still tell you that.
Well, it's not been removed per se. We'll just say it's been permanently stationed as a bad debt, but we can always click the button to reinstate it.
Okay, so Sally Sue, who didn't pay last year, if you looked her up right now, she'd say zero, but then you can see the history. I'm assuming you can see that you.
Yes, we can
zeroed out
see
the
her
balance.
history based on when we put her name into the system. It, I don't know what Sally's last name, let's say her last name is Sue. If we put in Sue, then all the accounts under Sue will show up, and it'll show which ones are active, which ones are inactive, and which ones are in accounts receivable as having bad debt.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, we do have people who owe us money. They move away and they come back and we say, we'd love to give you service. By the way, do you remember this? And they say, hey, oh yes, yeah, I'll pay that.
So I just want to clarify, we're probably talking about two separate books. We got the system that the water system uses, and this is, we're removing this off of a different set of financial books.
Financials, right.
Right, so this is coming off the financials, not out of the water
Exactly,
system.
about the utility system.
Right,
yes.
okay, I should, that's where
Stays
we're
on
writing
the
off.
utility accounts, but it gets written off on the financial side.
Thank you.
But if you run a report out of utilities, it'll also show zero. They'll be flagged, as you mentioned.
Yes,
but
they're
it'll show that
flagged.
they don't have
Yes.
balance unless you would.
Okay, very good. Yes, Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Turner, does this represent a higher than usual annual write-off? Is it strict? Can we very closely attribute this to COVID, or is this very close to our annual average over the years?
Very close to our annual. Our annual runs between 15 and 16,000. This one surprisingly is a little bit lower, and I think it's because we waited to write off the debt in order to give people a sufficient amount of time to make their payment plans when they got behind on their service, depending on how much they had and how much they said they could pay. Some people were on a 3-month payment plan, some people were on a 6-month payment plan, and some people were on an 8-month payment plan. So we gave them a sufficient amount of time to get through their payment plan so that we could get our bad debt down where it is now.
And the grace period that you granted to people during the COVID, that wasn't a forgiveness of their bill. It was simply a deferment that they would have to catch up at some point in the future.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else? All right, Kristen.
Councilmember Shelby,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville,
Aye.
Councilmember Buck,
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
And motion passes. Thank you very much. That concludes our business for this evening, so I'll now turn it over to our city manager for her comments. Ms. Turner?
I have just a couple of comments and one handout. So the Universal City Police Academy Alumni Association, UCPAA.
You got it right.
A is having a casino night. I believe that is on July 17th. I'm looking for some head. July 16th. Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. And so obviously, everyone here is invited to buy tickets, and they're available
Online after the 20th.
online after the 20th. So as you know, the Universal City Police Academy Alumni Association does a lot to support our police department with equipment and snacks and healthy things. And so we would like to participate as much as we can. So we'll announce it now, and then as we get closer and we have the link for the tickets, we'll send it out to the council member and anybody else who would like to attend. And then the last thing I have, which is a discussion and a handout regarding the upcoming budget preparation schedule. So staff has obviously been working on it since April. The department heads on June 1st started turning their budgets in and meeting with the budget department and myself. And on June 28th, we'll be filing that official budget with the city clerk so she can get it out on the website for everybody. And we'll be emailing a draft to the city council on June 29th, which is about 8 or 9 days before the meeting, so I hope it's sufficient time. If you remember last year, we started 2 new things. One, we held all of the budget work sessions in one session, and we are intending to do that again this time based on the guidance that was given back to us. And the other thing is that we color-coded departments, so we always knew where we were. We're going to follow that process too. Our council budget work session will be here. It'll be for all funds. We will start it at 6 o'clock. Also recognizing that, a lot of the council members work, we will have snacks and food and drinks available for the council, and we'll take a couple of breaks if we need to refresh ourselves. And from there, the July 25th shot clock starts. As you know, by law, the appraisal district is required to give us our final tax roll on the 25th of July. And once we receive that, we actually have 60 days to get all of the budget process done, posted, public hearings, approvals, and then by September 29th, forward our budget and our tax rate out to the tax assessor collectors that we do. So we have that coming for you. I'm going to give a handout to the council now, and then Kristen has the agenda, and she's nodding that yes, it's posted on the website. So. Any questions regarding that? And that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Okay, so obviously this can affect all of you. You're certainly invited to that meeting. That is the opportunity for you to be present as this budget is presented to council. And we'll make sure that there's maximum publicity out on that as we possibly can, so that you'll have that opportunity to attend and be a part of the process. Okay, very good. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate it. That was it for this evening. All right, let's move on to our council member comments, and we'll start out with Mr. Najarian this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe those tickets for the casino night were at a very inexpensive rate of, I believe, $40 for thousands of dollars worth of chips. Just throw that out there. Looking forward to that. Looking also forward to the first movies in the park coming up on the 18th. I believe that's Saturday. What movies showing?
18th. Luca and it's Splash Fest.
Luca and
Splash Fest.
And Splash Fest. So I'm looking forward to seeing all the kids out there and end up getting wet. And my daughter's looking forward to going out there and seeing the movie as well. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Adams, for bringing up the LGBTQ community. I know we have a very big community here in Universal City, and we shall be proud of that. And Ms. Iglehart, I just, there's a lot of reasons, and I'm sure you know this as well as I do, that, you know, we have closed sessions. Some of these are done by the companies coming through, where they're bringing up financials and things that they have competition and things that aren't going to want to be put out in forum where they're up for questioning on that, especially they might not even be given the bid. It's kind of like us putting our financials out there, you know, looking for a job and having it publicly put out. So I don't consider, they requested that, but I don't like the thing about the hiding behind closed doors. I never believe we're hiding behind that, but you're welcome to your opinion. And just looking forward to some months. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Phil?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I wanted to thank Ms. Turner for coming to the meeting on Sunday. I know it was probably very low on our list of things she'd like to do, like write about a root canal, but it was appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
We heard some comments tonight about transparency for the meeting on Thursday, and I share those concerns, and I would hope that the city would look at whatever we can share with the public before we make a decision. I think it would be wise. We don't want to get into a garbage situation. The other problem is that if it's an executive session, it makes it hard for us to talk about it because we can't really talk about what was in the executive session. So as much as we can share, I really appreciate that. I know this is just first start of the process, and I know nothing about what's going to be on there Thursday, so hopefully it's going to be just overview, and we will have plenty of time for citizen comments. And then, I guess, last meeting, I'm revisiting this. I don't think I used the magic words, I'm still learning. But I do think there's still a lot of citizens and contractors that would like to provide input on the codes. So I do still think that a committee or an advisory panel to review those would be wise. And so I'd like to make a motion to put that on a future agenda for discussion.
Okay. You would like for us to examine the possibility of putting this on an agenda item to discuss an advisory committee related to codes. This requires 60% of all of you, so I will go ahead and poll you if you're interested in having this happen. Please let us know. I think this is, Mr. Vaughan is definitely interested in this, so I want to open it up to you all. And
actually, we don't need a motion, we just need a consensus.
No, I didn't need a motion, a consensus. If you want a consensus to have this put on the agenda as a discussion item and potential action item, that's something we can determine. So I will open it up with a consensus. Mr. Vaughan would like to have us put this on as a potential item on the agenda.
I would be okay with the discussion on that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just want some understanding, is this just a discussion about creating an advisory panel?
That's correct. We would do this as a discussion, and not as an action item.
Advisory panel, right?
If I understand, that would be something similar to the fire substation when Mayor Pro Tem Neville requested that the city research the feasibility of putting something like that together. And it would be only for discussion at a future meeting.
Exactly.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I do want to remind you that we do have the Board of Appeals, and that's what their job is.
Right.
So
I was going to make
I
that.
don't know if everybody got that when you were reading through the all the code books, almost always in the 100 section, it calls for a Board of Appeals in order to hear discussions or consider renderings on the codes as it's applied by the code official. And the city council many years ago voted for the Board of Appeals to be that committee. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that we have an appeals process in place. It's been used. So I don't know if you understand that you might be duplicating effort or if you're considering a different kind of board. I just need some direction.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Like, as I was putting forth, if we're just bringing up as a discussion item to bring out some ideas or concerns, that I have no problem with it. If it's an agenda item, I'm not for it.
Well, it'll be an agenda item
Well,
for discussion only. not
For discussion only, yes. No action being taken. I have no problem with that.
And I think that is true, that the Board of Adjustment there's an element of the Board of Adjustment, it's called the Board of Appeals. They're the Supreme Court of the city, if you want to look at it in that direction. Maybe not the Supreme Court, but essentially the final vote. So that there is something in place already. I'm not sure how many of us are totally aware of that, but so far, I think we have, yes, Mr. Butler.
Phil, maybe you could share with Ms. Iglehart, Ms. Turner, I'm sorry about that. Perhaps you could share with Ms. Turner your vision for what the discussion would be about, so that she understands what the parameters are.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Board of Appeals is if there's a dispute over a code, they would settle the dispute. Or if you wanted to circumvent a code, you could bring it to them and they would say yes or no.
Well, not circumvent, so the board.
Well, whatever the word is.
Yeah.
But the idea is that we could look at whether the code needs to exist in the first place. And I don't think that's something that they're doing on a basis, is reviewing the codes and deciding which ones are appropriate to have in the codes and which ones are not appropriate. Nothing that this committee would be doing is reviewing what we've approved in the codes and provide recommendations for things that might need to be, or might be changed.
Yeah, so I'll hinge on the word code content versus code interpretation. The Board of Appeals considers interpretations of the code. You're actually wanting to know the content of the code.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we do have at least 1, 2, 3, 4 of 5. So that's consensus that passes. So we'll put this on as a future agenda item for discussion, Phil. Thank you very much. Okay, very good. That's the process, and the process is going to work. Okay, very good. All right, so anything else, Phil?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to call for a consensus, because I think we should review our anti-discrimination ordinance to include sexual identity and sexual orientation and gender identity.
Okay. That's, you understand what he's saying there? There's a section that would include the discrimination and not
against your sexual orientation and gender identity.
Okay.
I'm asking for a little elaboration.
I'd like to review the current ordinance and determine what we can do as a city to include the verbiage into our discrimination ordinance to protect said individuals on top of the individuals we already protect.
Okay, Mr. Warren.
I don't have any problem with the discussion. I'm just curious how that would work. Would we, because I don't know like where in the codes like the anti-discrimination stuff would be. Would that be like a committee that could bring us recommendations, or could bring, say like here, this one needs some tweaking and this one needs some tweaking, or is that something that we would do? Or how would that work?
I would assume we would have a discussion and ask the city to amend the code and following our laws to be able to create ordinances.
If the discussion would lead to a recommendation, then the recommendation would go to staff, and staff then would present it to council at a future meeting.
Okay, so this would take some staff time to kind of find where the
Yeah, we'll have to go through all of our codes of ordinances and see where.
Because it's written in multiple places.
Yeah,
This gets the process moving.
Yep.
So that would be, the next step then would be to present it, if you all, consensus agrees to present it to council, and then we would discuss it. And then if we think there needs to be some action, then we could give direction to staff that they present it as an official action item.
That's my position.
Okay, that's his recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Good.
Good with that?
No problem.
Okay.
I support.
Just like for
Okay.
Councilmember Vaughan's,
Okay.
anything we can discuss and argue about on that.
No, and that's what the process is all about, so I'm glad we'll do that too. So as a future item, we consider both of those definitely as discussion items. Okay? All right. Very
That's
good.
all I have. Thank you very much.
Bear?
I just want to say congratulations to our 2022 graduates who got to attend a little bit of some graduation over the weekend. Want to basically kind of piggyback. There are two ways to present something. One is to say, this is what we're chasing, this is why, here's my solution. The other is to point out and kind of criticize. And I don't feel like we're hiding behind closed doors. In my profession, we do a lot of things where we don't want our competition to know or understand, to see our financials. I do understand a lot of that. And to jump on to the city with the automatic assumption that we're hiding something from our citizens is frustrating beyond belief. Forgive me, I'm going through some physical issues right now too, so if I sound like I'm about to pass out, I am. So again, thank you for the input, and I know that we will try to do our best to make as much out there available as we can without it becoming a detriment to the process. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all the input that you provided today during Citizens to be Heard. For the fellow council members, I would invite anybody else that wishes to attend the meet and greet event or the meet and message events that I have on the Sundays prior to the city council meeting. Very productive, and I got a lot of very important feedback from the residents of Universal City. In fact, whether or not it was because of that input and because Ms. Turner was there, one of the items that one of the residents brought up was able to be actioned yesterday and today. Kim, would you explain the...
Yes.
So for everybody else, one of the residents brought up the Meadow Oaks Park, and there was a lot of overgrown areas back there with tall bamboo that was growing up, and she said that she had contacted the city several times, and lo and behold, Monday morning, they were out there mowing. So I don't know if that was because of the input from the resident that occurred, or if it was already planned. So Kim told me about some of the items and why they were not able to mow at the time, and hope you can share why that was.
Oh, yes, there's quite a bit of work that we're enduring right now at this time of the year. It was on our schedule, the work, Ms. Turner's got it, but the crew that's out there, we had to pull from, which is my mowing crew, to go out there to get it done. So if you see North Lake and Kitty Hawk overgrown, that's why. So I'll let you know that now, because that's where they should be at. But we have it on schedule. They're out there now. They'll continue to get it dredged, cleaned up before we get it onto the next project that we have slated. So right now is a good time. Typically we do these type of projects in the wintertime, being that we have some dry winters where we're able to do it. The vegetation's less, we have less to work with as far as haul off and debris that we're having to deal with right now. But all of it will be graded out. We'll try to level everything out, level the ponding that's out there is what the goal is. A lot of these areas that we do have within the city, because this is not the only one that we have in the city. There's others in the city, and they're meant to be natural areas. A lot of these areas, I can tell you, are very vulnerable to my employees. They're hazards. You can't get too close to them for mowing. First, in ways that the equipment the earth can basically slough off, right? And so there's different areas why we can't reach. There is some specialized equipment that we have purchased that can reach out, but it's very limited on some areas. So yes, a lot of the standing water in this area will be pushed out as much as we can. But a lot of these areas, my guys just can't get into. In a typical wet year, we just can't get, there's no way to get in there. Tractors get sunk, that's unstable ground for the equipment they would get on, so there's various reasons why. And a lot of times you just can't get to certain areas. But right now, with the conditions that the guys are in right now, it's more favorable, and that's why we're going to be able to do a lot more than we've been able to do in the past out there. So.
Well, Randy, to you and your team, thank you very much for everything that you guys have done. And Ms. Turner, thank you for taking that back to the Public Works and getting that done. On behalf of the residents, thank you for all of that. History lesson for Universal City. I promised that I would be sharing a little bit of history of Universal City every time I came up here. So in early June of 1965, the first traffic lights were installed in Universal City on Pat Booker. Mr. Neville is shaking his head. He might have remembered. He might have been the one who put in there. They were installed on Pat Booker at the Aviation and National Boulevard intersections. And then also, interesting trivia from yesterday, in 1968, San Antonio was hosting the World's Fair, and it was called Hemisphere. And on the 6th of June, they declared that that 6th of June would be Universal City Day, in memoriam of the, I don't want to say it wrong, June 6th was, on that day, it was the 8th anniversary of Universal City's first council meeting that had only occurred 8 years before that. So to my fellow council members, I wish to point out that yesterday was the 62nd anniversary of the very first council meeting in Universal City. So I think, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
You're flowing now.
Oh, no, oh, I'm learning. One of the things I wanted to do as part of being elected to city council was to make myself smarter about a lot of that stuff. So what I want to do is share it with you and anybody else who might be hearing it as well.
I was here in 1968, and Hemisphere was a phenomenal event. It's what made downtown San Antonio what it is today. Definitely. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
In 1962, there was nothing between National Boulevard and 35, except a flower place. You know, like a Milford was there. And that little Baptist church. And you could buy acreage on Pat Booker Road. I wish I had more money than kids at that time, for $200 an acre. Just by the foot these days. Okay. There was no restaurant in Universal City. We had to go all the way to Route 1604 to find a restaurant to take the kids out for something good to eat. I want to talk about the EDC and about executive session. It is not that we want to hide anything from the citizens. It's that when corporations come into the city, they don't want competitors to know that they're coming into the city or attempting to. Because of that, I'll think it's the best thing ever. And it took 3 years. Some of us on EDC, and Kim was our executive director at that time, knew this huge corporation was planning on coming into Universal City, but they did not want any of their competitors known. It was 3 years that we had to keep it quiet until Walmart decided to let the people know that they were building that big Walmart center. So it's not because we want to keep you unknowing. It's because because of the legality, we can't open our mouths. Thank you.
Okay, I've just got a couple of items. For council here, there's going to be 2 major workshops that ACOG is going to be hosting. One is on the 23rd, and it's a planning and zoning workshop. I know you're not on P&Z, but some of our people in the audience are. But it's very educational, informative. That's on June 23rd at 10 o'clock at ACOG. And the very next day is an elected officials workshop. I know TML is hosting one as well, but especially for our 2 new members and maybe existing members as well. It's a great opportunity to get back to speed on things like Open Meetings Acts and other things. And that's also going to be on the 24th, June 24th at ACOG at 10 o'clock in the morning as well. Both of those there's no expense there, but I think if you want to go, it'd probably be best to to let me or Kim or probably Kristen know, and she can notify ACOG so that it's hosted by Denton Navarro and certain local officials who will be participating in that function as well. So this is for you on the council. I think it's incredibly educational and very informative, and I think you get a tremendous amount of that. Even the P&Z as well, if you had the opportunity to attend that, you can learn a lot about what happens in the planning and zoning process. Okay. Another one, I appreciate what Mr. Buck is doing with his little information settings that he has. I've been talking about this and thinking about it for a long time. I would like to see us maybe even formalize a time when myself and council members on a rotating basis would have something like on a Saturday morning from 10 to 12 at the library in one of the rooms there, or we would just have an open session and if council would, this is kind of what I'm thinking about, that we would I would have 1 month, and then the next month would be another councilman, and move on until we all participated in that. So it's not going to take an overly phenomenal amount of your time, because citizens' time is important as well. I'd like us to consider doing that, and we could formalize it and have an agenda item, and then we could bring this material back. So whoever's the representative of the council at that time could make that report back to me. I think that's an important idea to do. I applaud what Mr. Buck is doing. I think it's terrific. I'd like to see everybody get involved with it if we possibly can. So look for something for me at the next council meeting that says this is what I would like to propose that we do. Okay? And I'd like to see it kind of formalized. And I think you've got the ball starting, Steve. I really appreciate that. And it's something that we've been contemplating for a long time. And I think it's important for us to keep that direct involvement with our citizens as much as we can. So I hope that you all agree with that, and you'll come and attend. He was very well attended, I understand, at the library. And if we do it on a Saturday, the library's already open. We don't have to worry about a special function on that way. So let's just think about that. I'll probably make that proposal to you at our next council meeting. Okay. I had the honor of attending the Area Education Training Command change of command last week. The new commander is General Brian Robinson. His call sign is Smokey, and I absolutely, for you older folks, you'll understand this, I absolutely could not pass up asking him if he was going to be leading the miracles at AETC. You ever heard of Smokey Robinson and Miracles? Anybody? Huh? The song and dance to Smokey Robinson and the Miracles? Some of you are a little bit too young, probably don't get that, but and he says, I've heard that before. So, but he's a great guy, The reason that they had to delay the process was because he hadn't been confirmed by the Senate yet after his promotion to Lieutenant General. So he's a brand new 3-star. Great guy. I think we're going to really have a great member of our community. I also told him, I said, you have a Universal City address. I'd like to claim you, but I can't because you're a federal installation. But really, I don't know if you realize that there are all those that live on Randolph Air Force Base. Since they privatized the housing, they have a 78148 address, Universal City, Texas. Although the businesses, the buildings where all the workers are at, that's a 78152 Randolph Air Force Base. So anyway, a little bit of trivia there for you too, Steve. Okay. Thanks for your input. That's really good. Kim, do you have something?
I'm sorry, you mentioned the library, and I realized I was remiss in reporting out something else. So as you know, summer reading is going on at the library, and sometimes we have, in the past, not had live performers for summer reading, which of course we're doing for the first time this summer. And Christina Blumenthal, who is our new library director, is very good at social media, so she pushed that out. And we had, for our very first event, we had 400 attendees, which is more than double what we've ever had in the past. So I want to give kudos to her and her staff for making that happen.
Lots of great things happening at the library. And this was in Sunday's paper. It's from the Dale Kramer. He's the Texas Taxpayers and Research Association. It's a great read. It's a great read about, it says, no need to fear your property appraisals. It is really an interesting read. I mean, it's a little political in terms of, they're advertising what they do, but I think it's a great read. And as we are preparing this budget, that's going to have a major impact for all of us. So let's consider that. So if you have a chance, this was in Sunday's paper, June 5th, 2020 was in the Homes and Communities section. And I just thought it was really interesting read, so if you have a chance to and hadn't had to, please go ahead and do that. I think you'll find it very entertaining and informative. Okay, thank you everyone for this evening's meeting. It is 7:35.
It's still daylight out.
It's still daylight. Okay, thanks for coming everyone. I appreciate it. This meeting is now adjourned.